there in terms of volume. But it's when you relate the volume to our GDP, we fall out of the top 10. So that is a strong case for us to strengthen mortgage financing in Nigeria. Now let me go on to the aspect of, that's my final take here. I call it forward thinking and forward looking. What should take our attention? Now, happening in different spheres across Africa, there's no geography that is left out. But what I discovered is this, that the practice with respect to housing delivery in Africa varies across the different countries. So there is a lesson to take from one geography to another. But there's something that came out for me. I think that happens in only one country in Africa. And that's the fact that ownership of the land is legally recognized as different and separate from ownership of the property on the land. Quite unlike the legal position in Nigeria, where the land in Nigeria confers legal rights and ownership for anything that is on the land. Okay? So in which case, if there arises a dispute and you reduce the dispute to judgment, eventually the owner of the land will win the case. That's what it means for us in Nigeria. But there's a country that says we are separating between those two. You can actually own the land and somebody else owns the property on it. In which case, there's nothing like dispute. So you work out an agreement that allows you and the other party to have your rights and also responsibilities, let me put it that way, on the land as well as on the property on top of the land. That is a pointer to an area we may need to interrogate in Nigeria. Now, the final part, and I call this innovations. Now, innovations in housing is not all about technology. There are several aspects and several areas we can look at. Green building materials, interestingly, in the report, the Housing Finance in Africa Yearbook 2023, incidentally, do I call her the editor or the, moderator, is the one also speaking to us at this show, okay? But there are some countries that already show evidence of this happening, like Chad, Cameroon, Algeria, Malawi, South Sudan, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Then Blue Finance, and that is Cabo Verde, which incidentally, I said earlier on, has the highest mortgage loans to GDP ratio in Africa. And then Green City, Smart City, Nigeria shows up there. Okay, that's where we have Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Egypt, Gabon, Gambia, Mauritius, Nigeria, and Zambia. Then Green Design, which of course I made reference to earlier on, that allows a lot of sunlight. But we have that so plenty in Nigeria. In fact, in Africa, the joke I always make when I go to Europe, whether mainland or island, is that I love going back to Nigeria because in Nigeria, the weather we enjoy is summer all year round. Whereas in Europe, there are 4 seasons. Okay? Now, we can therefore also begin to look at green design. Like has happened already in Mali, Morocco, Ghana, Kenya, Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, and Eswatini. Then energy efficiency, Nigeria showed up there. In fact, Nigeria and Burkina Faso are examples in the area of energy efficiency. Finally, technology in construction. And the examples given are Mauritania and Togo. So let me close with this. Now, I call this keeping the focus. And my summary there is that there must be a renewed government collaboration with private participants. Now, let's use the word participants rather than say developers. That is looking at the entire housing delivery value chain. So there must be collaboration. And number one, now this is my own strong opinion, that the government should provide the basic infrastructure. Now this is something we normally say at the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. That if you want any area to be developed, you build the road to the location. Developers will go to build it. So that's a common thing we say. Of course, relevant institutions should also be established and peopled with the right professionals. But we see a number of government institutions, not just in Nigeria, across Africa, that are not peopled by the relevant professionals. So that also is an important thing I want to emphasize here. then there is need for subsidies and interventions. And when it comes to technology, and I'm happy the president of EMBA said earlier on, the place of artificial intelligence. But even more importantly is generative artificial intelligence. Now, AI will do only one thing for you, and I will give a simple illustration. If you follow AI and you go on Google Maps, just to illustrate, you are traveling on a road, and there are several vehicles parked by the roadside. Now, the satellite image to Google Maps will tell you that there is traffic jam along that route. It will paint the road red. Now, where it becomes generative artificial intelligence is that road is red on the map, but you now drive through it without stopping and without reducing speed. That message goes back to the software. And then that says, given the experience of a motorist that passed that road, disregard the satellite image of all the vehicles parked by the roadside. So the color will change immediately from red to blue or green, as the case may be. Now, that is the place of generative artificial intelligence. So in which case also, what role can that play in the evolving practice across the entire value chain? I call it adaptive and innovative technologies. And also, how do we use more of local materials? Ecosystem integration, which says finance is not enough. I again pick this from the yearbook of CAHR. That finance is not enough to glue together all those joints. In which case, efficiency must run through all of them, and at the same time, the place of technology to drive that process in terms of cost reduction and, of course, housing delivery. So that means designers, developers, input producers and suppliers, financiers, underwriters, and, of course, off-takers and sellers. Then I call them techies, because there is property tech, there's fintech, there's insure tech, there's pension tech, and so on and so forth. So